Their crosstown rival, The Age, obviously, once again, it's the IBAC claims first scalp. The interesting story to me, which has been floating around, I've heard it on 6PR this afternoon, the 27 billion paid to businesses going okay. How do you think this is going to come out in the wash when we have to move into, say, end-of-year books and then moving into preparing for potentially an early budget or into an election campaign?
Yeah, look, this hasn't been resolved, has it? It's sort of the JobKeeper hangover, isn't it, at the moment, for those companies that have either voluntarily decided to repay that money or those companies who are just going to say, I've paid my tax all my life, I don't want to let you know about it. But the more often they're named and shamed, I know that there's outcry, and we hear that on the talkback lines, we read it in the newspapers all the time, but does it ultimately then, or has it started to affect anybody's sales? I know the immediate response is, I'll never shop there again. I'm not going to do that. But once it dies down, does anybody really remember? I'm not saying it's not important. It's really important. It's incredibly important. And I don't think that it has been managed properly. And I think the government's trying its best to have an arm's distance from this. But Josh Frydenberg, he's a pretty reasonable treasurer. I think he's got to come out and resolve it.
I think he will. Obviously, this story by Shane Wright tomorrow, a Treasury review has revealed up to 27 billion of the 89 billion JobKeeper program went to businesses that did not suffer as much as they feared from pandemic lockdowns, but including mechanisms to claw it back could have scared the labour force and encourage businesses to cut operations to game the scheme. I think the one way you come out and sort of promote this is like, look, we were heading into an abyss of an unknown abyss, and we did everything we could. So I guess to legislate in retrospect is too hard basket.
It is, but I think most Australians as well are just frustrated by the fact that they are petrified about claiming that extra jacket allowance from a dry cleaning bill and his billions of dollars that may have not been entitled to businesses that were not actually suffering during the pandemic. That's I think a hard sell.
Yep. For sure. Now let's go back to New South Wales. We're going to go to the Daily Telegraph. Tradie toll cash. Tradies will be able to recoup the cost of tolls under an expanded COVID support scheme, providing up to $2,000 in hip pocket relief for small businesses. Dominic Perrottet has added tolls to the list of fees that can be refunded. It comes as Sydney celebrated an iconic day of freedom. I feel if you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile, literally. And how you look, I find tolls to be completely foreign to me, being a West Australian. I paid them when I lived on the East Coast and thought that was fine. But don't you think that when they get a taste of not having to pay that, it's going to want to hang around?
But I tell you what, up to $2,000, that's
not much.
I was going to say that's about a week's worth of tolls in Sydney at the moment. Like the toll roads in Sydney are ridiculously expensive. And look, I mean, they're there to help build the infrastructure, but then they never leave. They keep going up. So look, maybe there's a bit of tweaking there. I'm sure Mark McGowan would have a bit of advice for Dominic Perrottet.
Definitely, he doesn't. You know,
he'd be able to tell him where there's no toll roads in WA. Why doesn't New South Wales do that? Send a few spears across, sort it out, get rid of the tolls, Dom.
Throw in, play the GST bingo, there you got it.
Exactly. There's 5 terms for a Dom. Get rid of the tolls.
Indeed.